Well, welcome to the podcast, guys. This is episode 3, and I think it's going pretty swell. Uh, I said I'd bring on some guests, and I did. And today we're bringing on my friend Madison from New York, and she was a former Muslim. No, wait, she was. She was a former Mormon, then Muslim, then Catholic. So
Mhm.
it's a whole complete insane story that I actually haven't heard much about. I only heard bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah.
But yeah, welcome, dude.
Thank you, thank you, I'm happy to be here, thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. You can just start your whole entire life journey, share with the world. Don't be shy.
'Kay.
Whatever you want to share, go for it.
Awesome, so yeah, I grew up in Salt Lake City, which as a lot of people may or may not know is like the mecca for, the LDS Church, AKA Mormons. Um, and when you live there, you don't realize how much of a bubble it is. So, um, going to elementary school, middle school, high school, and you kind of meet some kids that aren't raised that way, and then you start to kinda see like, "Oh, this isn't the only thing that exists in the world," because 'cause they're very good at kinda making it seem that way. And I'm not saying any other religion doesn't do that as well, but, moving here and moving to other states where there's a very, very low presence, it feels like another planet, when you leave. So, um, my family pretty much all of my extended family and my immediate family, was raising us as Mormon. And then when I was about 11 or 12, my parents split up, and my family, even my aunts and uncles and grandparents, all collectively stopped going kind of at the same time. I don't think it was for any particular reason, but we just did. So I didn't have to go through those pains that a lot of kids I grew up with did, where they realized they didn't want to be a part of the church, and a lot of them got disowned by their families or got shunned, and I didn't have to deal with that, which was a
How
very big blessing.
how old were you around this when like people started leaving?
Like 11.
Okay, so you're quite
Yeah,
young.
very young, yeah. So I never owned a Bible, and my parents were teachers in the Mormon church, actually. So my dad, like, Mormon church is very long. It's like 3 hours, and so the first hour is called sacrament, which is where you all meet in the chapel, I guess, in the pews, and you sing, and there's people that go up and do talks. You call it giving a talk and giving a testimony. Um and I never really understood any of what we were doing. They had the bread and the water. I just got really excited to have a little snack and a little bit of water, but I just never really cared. It was more of just a place where I felt forced to have to go, and we just sang these songs that I didn't understand anything. And I feel like I knew more about like Gordon B. Hinckley and some of the prophets like Joseph Smith than I did about Jesus. Like I don't remember
Mm.
hardly learning about Jesus, although they had pictures of him. Um, and the churches themselves are very dingy, and they feel like office buildings. Like there's hardly any windows, there's no art, there's no stained glass. They smell strange too. Like they have this particular smell, like no matter which one you go into the hundreds that there are in the Salt Lake
You know
Valley,
what I
they all smell
noticed?
the same.
I went to a few Mormon churches. The first one I went to, I was like, "Wow, this is not that bad. Like nice pictures." Then the second one I went to, I was like, "Are these the same pictures?" And then I
They
realized they're the same layout. And by the third one I went to, I was like, okay, every
They're
single
all the
Mormon church is
same.
exactly the same.
They
They don't
are.
tell you that until you start
Mm-mm.
going, but it's like like
Well,
identical.
and the other thing is, like, you think that's what church is. Like, when the first time I stepped into a Catholic church, which was last year at 31 years old or 30 years old, that's how long it took me to step foot into a Catholic church. And I was blown away. Like, it's so beautiful. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm recalling now in about ninth grade, which, you're about 15 years old here, they did this religious field trip. So you spend the whole day traveling around, and we went to like a Buddhist temple, a Hindu temple, we went to a mosque, we went to a synagogue, we went to a Greek Orthodox church, but we did not go to a Catholic church, which is
Interesting.
interesting. So
Even though it's like the biggest denomination, really.
yeah, yeah. So I remember, like, when my dad was teaching our class, everyone had a Bible, and I was really I was like, "What is this big book?" Because you had a Book of Mormon, which is a lot smaller, which I had, but, I didn't have a Bible, and so
Mhm.
I never really understood any of what we were being taught or what we were there for. Like, it was just some place that my parents were forcing me to go, and, same thing with baptism. Like, my dad sent me, recently some photos that he found of me from my baptism, and, you're 8 years old, it's always you're 8 years old, and I remember wanting to do it just because everyone in my family and everyone in my neighborhood, that's just what you did. I had no idea
Mhm.
what it meant, so it was just a very strange fever dream kind of an experience, and then when we stopped going, I was relieved because I had no desire to be in those buildings, I hated being inside of them, and I just didn't care. Um,
Mhm.
and so I don't know how I would have felt being raised in a Catholic church, honestly. I don't know if I would have had a totally different attitude just based on the religion itself or the churches and the architecture. I don't know how I would have felt, but um yeah, so I was very glad to not have had that experience of, when you go to school and you see other kids that aren't Mormon and then you see all the freedoms that they have outside of it, all the rules. And I even dated a couple boys that their families were Mormon and like making them be Mormon when I wasn't and when all of our friends weren't. And there was just so much clashing. And I've noticed in a
Mhm.
lot of these families, a lot of those kids turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, like they lash out extra hard. And that is actually a very common thing I'm noticing in Utah. I dated a guy a few years ago who went on a mission and he was Mormon all the way up until 2021. And so I had met him like right after he left the church as an adult. So a totally different experience where he was Mormon and understood the teachings and all of that stuff growing up. And
Mhm.
he went very hard in the like, I'm a hippie, I'm doing psychedelics, I'm drinking, I'm doing OnlyFans, just went completely the opposite of whatever Mormonism is because that's kind of what happens is they're so sheltered.
Because they're so trapped in it at a
Yeah,
young age that when they start experiencing some freedom, they go
exactly.
crazy with it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have no bounds. And they just want to try everything because they feel like they've been stifled their whole life. So, having not had to go having left the church, like, 12 years before he did, I had already gone through a lot of what he was experiencing as a preteen, teenager, young adult, so it
Mhm.
was interesting to watch someone my own age have to, slough off even more of the indoctrination and things that happened, but during high school I went through the same thing where I was just like, the Mormons dominated every single school. Like the Mormon kids are the popular kids. They were the student body, the president. They were always homecoming king and queen. Like high school and movies, it was not at all what high school is like in Utah. So it's really interesting to hear my now husband's experience in high school because it is like a different world there. So
I was gonna say, like, in my high school, if you were a Mormon, I guarantee you would not be popular. I don't think there was
yeah,
any Mormons in my high school, because
I
it just
know.
out east, there's just not many.
And that's what
But
I mean about it's like its
yeah.
own world. There's like a dome over it because when you leave, you're like, "Whoa." I even was signing up at OCIA at this parish that I no longer go to, but I was inquiring and they were asking me if I'd been baptized and I said, "Well, I've been baptized in the LDS church." And the woman looked at me confused. She was like, "What church?" And I said, "LDS, like
Mhm.
the Mormons." And she was like, "I don't know what that is." And it was just so crazy to meet someone who had no idea what that is, coming from a state where everything revolves around
Everyone's Mormon.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
restaurants are closed on Sundays, the freeways are empty, um, like, it's just quiet on Sundays, and, they have general conference, so on those weekends, like, restaurants are more busy than usual, so everything kind of revolves around the Mormon religion. You go to, like,
Mm.
my middle school and high school, we're down the street from each other, but in, like, I'd say a 1 mile radius, there was like 4 or 5 churches. Pretty much you drive to one end, like there's a church here, you drive down to the end of that street, there's another church, you walk up another block, there's another church there, and they all had multiple wards within them. So there's different groups of people that all go to church at different times depending on where you live. So that's how many
Mm,
Mormons there are there. Is there the stake is like the building itself, which you probably know all of this, but the each church is called a stake. And then they have wards. So they have different groups of people that use the same building. So you'll be like, "Oh, I'm in the
okay.
second
Yeah.
ward," you know? So even though you guys use the same church building because you live close, you might be in a totally different group of people that doesn't know the first ward, you know? So,
You, you know what's crazy though is something I realized when talking to Mormons is that it's either extremely frowned upon or not even allowed to go to another ward if it's not your ward.
see, I don't know that. I didn't remember that because again, like, I
You
stopped
were so
going.
young, so
Yeah,
yeah.
I stopped going, but my mom kept me in Young Women's. I don't know if you've learned about that at all, but, like, as a teenager,
Mhm.
you have these weekly meetings, so and they're for different ages, and they have little names for them, I forget what they are, but, there was, like, the beehives, and I think that was when you're, like, 10 or 11 or something, but, um, then they do this thing called girls' camp and boys' camp every year, so I went with a group of a bunch of Mormon girls 2 summers in a row, camping, and one of the trips was very fun, but I just don't like organized activities like that anyway, so I remember the first one I got sick, and I'm just with all these people that I don't really know that well, and, like, they wanted to just talk about, it's all about Mormon stuff that whole time, and I just remember feeling so uncomfortable,
Mhm.
but, we did do some decently fun activities, but I just remember dreading going because I think my soul just, even without really knowing what they were about, just knew I didn't belong as a part of that. So it was really uncomfortable to still have to go be around these people. But I will say, I'm not trying to make them out to be evil. They are very nice. I rarely, if at all, ran into anyone that was ever cruel or mean. But there's another side of that where in high school, because, it's majority Mormons, um, if you aren't and you dress a certain way, or maybe you curse, or you drink coffee or things like that, you get judged for that. Like you get certain looks thrown at you and, you know,
For
um,
drinking coffee.
yeah. Or like we were in choir one time and my friend Maddie, she said the word damn during a theater rehearsal. And this very, very strict Mormon girl looked over and she said, "Excuse me," whereas here, my husband that grew up on the streets of New York, you know, you're a loser if you act like that. They'd be like,
It's like a
"Excuse me," and you'd
culture
get
shock
beat up.
then.
You'd get beat up,
Yeah.
so it's like a totally different world. So experiencing that in high school, just feeling like an outcast, I then became extremely atheist, at about 17 to 18. And, I was on Twitter, like, arguing with Christians. I just thought anyone that was Christian or Mormon was, like, the most evil people in the world, which is still a very big attitude that people share nowadays for some
Mhm.
reason. And, I liked Ricky Gervais and Richard, is it Richard Dawkins? Is that the Super
Richard
8?
Dawkins,
Yeah.
yeah. The God Delusion?
Yeah, exactly. Those
Yeah.
were the guys I was following, and just echoing, even though, I don't know, I just felt like it was maybe cooler or just felt like I resonated with that more because I wanted to be whatever
Mhm.
was anti-Mormon. And my dad, like, he went on a mission to Japan. He served 2 years there, which was really good for him. Like, he loves that culture now and he can still speak Japanese and things like that. So there was a cool aspect of my life that was influenced by that. But he left the church and was so anti-Mormon at that point that he was almost encouraging me to be like atheist like I was. So,
Mhm.
to have my own parent that had a lot of angst towards the church, kind of fueled my fire. But I still knew nothing about Catholicism. I didn't know one single Catholic person in my entire life until I met my husband about 5 years ago. Um, he was the first Catholic I ever met. I've met, non-denominational Christians, but I
Mhm.
still had no idea what any of them truly believed. And then when I hit about 20, I started dabbling in psychedelics and stuff like that. Just got into my hippie phase, I call it, and I had some pretty crazy experiences that led me to be more agnostic and spiritual, I would say, because on a certain level, I started to realize this reality is just a very small aspect of
Mhm.
what is actually out there. So that opened my mind to a lot of possibilities. And then, so, I just kind of explored all of that for years. I was smoking weed. I got into drinking at some point, just really, really secular ways of living, and I wasn't happy. Um, and there's a reason, I agree and love our teachings now because I genuinely have lived that and have seen that while there was some good things, it was heavily shrouded by darkness. So,
Yeah.
um, then I met a friend, a fellow music producer, because I make music. And he was a Muslim and he's from Morocco. And he never pressured me, but he started sharing his religion with me, which was Islam. And I don't know what it was. Something resonated about it with my soul.
You say it the Muslim way, Islam.
Islam, yeah.
I just noticed it. I don't even say it that way anymore. I say Islam, but they're always like Islam. It's just like the way they say
I know
it.
I have some of that still because I spoke with him so much. So I still have some
Yeah.
of those pronunciations, but something about it was so appealing to me. And then we sort of got romantically involved. And again, there was zero pressure. Everyone in my life thought I was, had a gun held to my head for as a metaphor that I was pressured
Mhm.
into joining this because to them it was so crazy. To go from me being a total atheist and them only knowing Mormonism to like, whoa, this girl is talking to this Muslim kid and now she wants to wear hijab. So they were really worried for me. I got so much backlash from the people in my life, which today I'm grateful for. But at the
So
time,
just out of curiosity, and this is something that's been like not bugging me, but in the back of my mind in a general sense, what is up with white Western women being so like inclined to Islam? Like my own wife is a white woman. And again, I'm not Muslim, but I'm Arab.
mhm,
Or I was watching this show called Homeland,
mhm,
and there's this all they're all white women married to radical Muslim men who are fighting for Al Qaeda. And I know people in my life who are like Arab, whether they be Muslim or Christian, and they're all married or engaged or dating white women. So what is the appeal to? I would guess two questions to a Middle Eastern individual, and then maybe Islam too, because there seems to be an appeal to Islam for like white Western women.
for
Like I don't
me,
understand it.
it was the culture and a lack of real understanding about the teachings. So that's why
Hmm.
for me it only lasted about 8 months because, I was listening to the Quran while I was working. Like I'd have um Islam Sobi, I'd have his beautiful singing, reading the Quran, but it would follow with an English translation. So I would slowly be learning about all of this. And, I was praying and everything and going to mosque every week. I actually joined, I said my Shahada the week Ramadan was starting. So
Wow.
it was a very crazy time. And for me, it was the appeal of the culture. Like, I think Morocco is beautiful. But again, it's just from someone that doesn't really know what happens there. You see the surface level of things and you're like, wow, the architecture is beautiful. Oh, Arabic is such a cool
Hmm.
language and the way that they pray is so beautiful. Like I still think it is, which is why when you sent me the readings of the book of John, there's people that read the Bible in Arabic and they do it in the singing way, which I think is amazing because I actually do
Hmm.
still culturally love how that type of prayer sounds. But it's just, the difference between I'd rather have it be the Bible than the Quran. Now
The Muslims
knowing,
stole it from the Byzantines and the Coptics.
see, didn't know that.
That yeah, so, like, the way the Quran is chanted, tajweed is from Coptic hymns and Byzantine hymns. So
Beautiful.
if you go
Yeah.
to the Middle East and you listen to Byzantine Arabic hymns, they're the same. Like you can look up psalms in Arabic and they're chanted in the exact same way.
Does
And
that
that's
have
because
ties
yeah.
to where Jesus is from? Uh,
Yes.
okay. And that would actually make so much sense because, that actually makes so much sense because it's probably more than I'm being called to Jesus's, you know, culture and where he's
Mhm.
from than anything. So again, another really good piece of knowledge that kinda brings things together for me. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was just a lack of understanding, I think, and then, trying to like, here in New York, if I decided to be Muslim and started wearing hijab, it would be so easy. My neighborhood is filled with them, it is very normal, I have Hasidic Jews here that I've never seen a single one until I moved here, but you see literally
Mhm.
every kind of person here, whereas in Utah, it is 95% just white people, and so,
Yeah.
walking around in hijab, a lot of the Muslims there don't even do it because you get weird looks and stares, and as a white person doing that, especially when I started showing up to work after just being an American person and then showing up in hijab, people are like, "What's this girl doing?" Like,
Yeah, what's happening?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, "Are you okay?" So, there was a lot of anxiety and insecurity I had with it, but I felt very called to it, and then I met some very nice people, I really appreciate what you're doing and the fact that you are calling to light the issues with the religion itself versus the people. Because I can say I've
Mhm.
firsthand experienced it, and you know as well, the whole religion does not encompass the entire population. Like, there are a lot of good Muslim
No.
people. They are very kind, a lot of them, very giving. I had this, one woman, she was from Pakistan, she's a dentist. Their family was constantly inviting me over, her daughters loved me, they wrote this cute little book for me, they were always asking about me, like, I felt so loved and cared for, and I felt accepted, and it was really beautiful, and I know even if they knew I left, I haven't spoken to them in a long time, but even if they knew that I was no longer a Muslim, they still just cared about me, so that was
Mhm.
my experience, but I really wanted to just go back to partying with my friends because I moved in with a friend and they were drinking all the time at that house and having fun, and I was constantly being made fun of. Like, they were constantly actually making fun of me for being a Muslim and wearing hijab and stuff. And so eventually one day I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And it did cause a rift between the guy I was dating at the time. And But I felt better, I felt like having to hide my hair all the time and the praying, like, it just really doesn't work with the way I grew up, like, to go from growing up completely American and trying to do a 180 like that in a non-Muslim country is like
It's completely different. Yeah.
it's, like, impossible unless you're really, really committed to it. Um, so I felt better leaving, but I still had a respect for it. Um,
Mhm.
and now seeing what's happening in the world, especially in Nigeria, and, just
Yeah.
learning more, especially from you and your channel about what it's about. I have issues. And again, like you, I'm not afraid to speak about them, but I don't speak against the individual worshipers. I just speak against the teachings and the overall
Mhm. You
attitude
love the
of it.
people. The
Yeah.
people are made in God's image. It's the ideology that whatever
Yeah.
ideology that tries to, like, cripple societies, but we must stand against. That's what I
Yeah.
believe.
And I mean, with the evil people that do, practice the extremist aspects of it, I don't have respect for those people. I feel a lot of like anger, but I can
Mhm.
still very deep down know that it's just that they've been deceived.
Yeah.
And so, but still, you see thousands of people getting murdered for it and know that a lot of those people would want death upon us as well. And it's hard to be like Jesus and still love those people. That's something I really struggle with. But
Yeah.
learned to pray in Arabic, which I thought was very cool. I was actively learning it. Like when I see the writing, I can still make out some of the letters, although I don't really know what it says anymore. But
Mhm.
um, I loved praying in Arabic. I loved learning that. I loved having kind of a schedule thing every day, but it just got to be too much. Like I felt like I was giving up parts of who I am. So that's really why I left. And then I
I
went
have a
back to
theory.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a theory as to maybe why Westerners are like intrigued by Arab culture. And I think it's because it's a masculine culture. That's why a lot of women like it. So like
Yeah.
when men are Arabs, Arabic's a very masculine language.
Yeah.
Like the Arab culture is very masculine, and it feels like a good example of this is I actually thought like a lot of people like when I started high school in Canada, I thought a lot of people were just gay by the way they talked. But then I realized no, they're not gay. They just people in like the Western world just have very feminine voices. Like the men
Yeah.
in the North America speak very feminine. But in other parts of the world, they have deeper voices. They have like beards. Like they
Oh,
seem
yeah.
more
Like
masculine.
Balkan
And that
people.
yeah, exactly. And maybe that's something to do with it. This is me going a little bit
Yeah,
off
no,
topic.
it's that's another layer of it, like, oh, and this goes back to the Mormons, I can spot a Mormon from a million miles away by how they dress,
Mm-hmm.
by how they look, like, their gene pool that they have slowly been just demasculizing their generations of men. And I look at them and a lot of them are very thin, they're tall, they're skinny, they are, like, more feminine looking, they all do their hair the same, there's little of
Mm-hmm.
that masculinity, which is why, I've I liked my husband for 4 years before I moved here, but, the distance I was in Utah, he was in New York, so
Mm-hmm.
I liked this man though and was willing to move myself across the country and wait for him because he's masculine. Like he's a New Yorker, he's got that funny Brooklyn accent, he's from an Italian family, they're very masculine, and I am very, attracted to that, and I think that is a layer of why I was attracted to the Muslim I dated because they do have more of that masculine, like, energy to them, where,
Mm-hmm.
the wife
Yeah.
is a little more submissive, which I believe in that, I believe in the more traditional roles and things. Um, I never found it offensive, like when you're at the mosque, when the men are up at the front and the women are separated, like I never found that offensive. Just like how I don't think women belong in the priesthood, and I will never be a person that fights for that because I still I think God is a male, and I think that's okay. I just think women this feminist movement has really taken over a lot of things and tried to emasculate men, and I think that's been an overarching what do you call that? Like, motive for a lot of,
Yeah.
things going on, like, I don't know how else to describe it, but there's this agenda to
It impacts everything we do, really.
yeah, and it gets into more conspiracy type stuff, but there's been a lot of, organizations and agendas pushed to help emasculate men, and that's putting
Mm.
estrogen in more foods and things like that.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and I really disagree with the feminist movement, so that's why another aspect and layer I love in the Catholic Church because men hold the priesthood and, women should or are suggested to have a more traditional role, I love the having a man being a provider. I totally believe in that, and again, that's why I chose my partner because he is very much that way. He's a protector, he's a provider.
Mhm.
We believe in our Second Amendment. We own a firearm. I feel very safe with him. And so being able to relax into my feminine with a man like that versus being with a man that I feel like, because I have a lot of masculine energy I'm still letting go of because I've
Yeah.
dated, like in Utah, the guys are more feminine. They just are. I dated a couple of
Mhm.
liberal guys and I
I'm sorry
felt
for your loss. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call, and, um, I don't know, just feeling like you don't have very many options, you kind of settle for stuff, but as I got older,
Mhm.
I was like, "I don't want this, I want a man to take care of me that," or even if it's like I if I have the option where I can work and I want to work, I at least wanna have a man that wants to provide. You know, it's he can say like, "Hey, you don't have to work if you don't want to, but if you want to, that's fine. Either way, I'll take care of you," you know? And I really love that that is something that is encouraged in our Catholic faith as well, that, you know, leaving Islam, that that wasn't the only religion that kinda supports that way of life,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
So you left Islam, and then you went back to being kind of like, you believed in God, or did you go back to just being kind of like atheistic?
Not even atheist. I wasn't like, you know, "There's no God, God's not real." I just was floating. I was agnostic. I was like, "I don't know what there is," because I
Mhm.
knew nothing. And then it took me getting closer to my husband. We were just friends, but I didn't know he was raised Catholic until last year when I moved here and when we kinda started getting closer to being together.
Mhm.
I didn't know, because he sort of fell away, like a lot of his family did. They're more Protestant now, but he was living in very secular ways as well, which created a lot of pain in the early days of our relationship. So, you know, learning that he was raised Catholic and we sort of brought each other back. We were reading these books together called Conversations with God. I don't know if you've heard of those. Have you heard of them?
I have heard of those actually, yeah.
Yeah, so I downloaded the audiobooks and it's very not Christian. It's actually, I think, a guy that was raised Roman Catholic, but
Mhm.
claimed to be having these conversations with God. And in the audiobook, the person that's reading, they're when they're narrating as God, it switches between a man and a woman's voice to sort of show that like gender neutrality, I guess. But it's a lot of stuff that Christians would consider totally heretical, you know, where he's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, there's no hell and Hitler's in heaven and there's no like good or bad and why would God create sex if he was just going to tell us to not do it? Like why would I create something that gives you pleasure and then
Yeah.
punish you?" So, it was a lot of that self-serving new age type of thought, which I guess is how I would classify myself between, before and after Islam. I would have classified myself as very much new age, like crystals, hippie, like ayahuasca, you know, mushrooms unlock the secrets of the universe type thing. Where now I do believe, you know, sure, maybe you are accessing a spiritual realm, but it could also be demonic, you know?
Yeah.
So and I have had a couple of scary experiences on that, with those, and some not so much, which when you have the positive ones, you know, it's easy to think like, "Oh, they're just good," but,
Mhm.
um, my friend who converted recently has still been kind of falling into his old ways. He's done them a few times recently after his baptism, um, which, you know, I have my conversations with him about, but he after everyone has told me, "They are demonic, don't ever do them, I regret doing them." He's like, you know, "I've gone to confession multiple times to, seek forgiveness and repentance for those," but he's like, "I swear a demon was around me when I was, on those," and so he fully believes that you're opening a door. You know, you're giving access to
Yeah.
yourself, and it could also be for good spirits, but to me, it's not worth risking possibly letting in those evil spirits even more because they are around us all the time, and so to give
Mhm.
them more access to you, even if there's a small chance, just to me isn't worth it,
I remember
so
when I was an atheist, my best friend who's still an atheist, we were talking about haunted houses, and we were like, "You know what? We don't believe in God or demons or anything like that, but I don't wanna find out." And I was like, "Yeah, I don't wanna
mhm,
find out either. Maybe we shouldn't do Ouija boards," even though we didn't believe in anything. But, like,
Yeah.
if you did find out, like, that opens a whole different can of worms, you know?
Oh, exactly. And that was my
Yeah.
whole thing is I believed in ghosts. Like the paranormal stuff always fascinated me. And
Mhm.
the horror movies that I would watch were always the ones about the devil or like possessions, like paranormal activity and stuff like that, which to me is the most scary because those are actually real. I believe in exorcisms. And so then going through this whole journey with my conversion to Catholicism, especially with my friend Nick, he had a scary experience where his friend actually committed suicide right in front of him, and he was convinced that there was a demon that was attached to her that attached itself to him. And that was like 2019 before COVID, I think. And he said that he had some weird experiences where, he'd be watching the paranormal activity movies with his girlfriend and like a picture would fly off his wall or something like that. And I've
Mhm.
never had an actual paranormal experience, but I don't ever discount people that have. And while he was going through OCIA, because he got baptized this past Easter. So about last winter, as he was getting closer and closer to being baptized and getting stronger in his faith, he felt that this demon or whatever spirit it was that was negative was attaching itself to him more and more and making its presence more known. But he was almost gaslighting himself, like, "Oh, I'm probably just crazy," and I was like, "Bro, to believe in
Mhm.
God also means that you do need to believe in demons, like, that is part of what we are
Part of
taught
it,
as
yeah.
Catholics." So, I'm like, "Don't gaslight yourself," but also, I feel like it is easier to give power to these negative ghosts because you see so much stuff about paranormal things and exorcisms that, like, to be scared is to then give more power to these demons and
Mhm.
negative spirits than it is to God, it's like when you're learning this and you're getting new into the faith, it's like these constant struggles, I was scared to be home alone for a while because I would get on this TikTok algorithm where it would be like the mimic spirits, and I'd get all these scary, like, TikToks on my thing, and I'd be home alone at night. And there was one night I got so scared, I actually got an Uber with my dog and went to my mother-in-law's house because I didn't wanna be alone.
Yeah.
Um, but the stronger I got in my faith, I realized, "Oh, like, it's okay. God is more powerful than these things, so I don't need to be scared anymore, even if they're here." And, I started rebuking
Mhm.
spirits, and I feel like ever since I started praying and really having more faith that I have felt more safe than ever. But I never felt that way when I was a Muslim or anything else. So,
Mhm.
um, we've talked a little bit though, and when you learn about flaws in every single religion or corruption that can happen at any level, it is a test. I do feel like our faith gets tested quite a lot. Um, so I'm still going through a journey, as are you, where
Mhm.
it is said in the Bible, you know, the persecution will happen. If they hate you, just know they hated me before you. Um, and it's not easy, but I did not deal with it nearly as much as a Muslim than I have now as a Catholic, and that is really crazy to me. Um, people were just worried about me being a Muslim because they just didn't understand it, but genuinely, the hatred and the anger that you get from being Catholic is quite challenging. So even
Yeah.
though I was wearing hijab and, you know, fully diving into Islam and praying 5 times a day, like taking work breaks to go do that, I never felt as much judgment or just disdain than I do being a Catholic. So it's been a
Mhm.
more difficult journey, I would say. But I feel a lot more at home. So I know
Yeah.
you've been kind of going through your own challenges as well. Um,
I'm not surprised because I just realized that most people suck, regardless of where they are in life, like, whether they be in the church or not in the church.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when I had my conversion and I came to the conclusion that Jesus is Lord and that he established a Catholic Church, it was like anything else I did would have been better to my parents. Like if
Yeah.
I said I was an atheist to my mom before that, and she was fine. Um,
Same.
even
My dad, yeah.
it was she was even said, "Why don't you be Baptist? That's even better." And I'm like, so it's not even just Christianity. You just really don't like this one church.
Mhm.
And it was the irony is she's like, yeah, because it caused so much corruption and stuff. And I was like, Mom, the entire family's Muslim. What are you talking about? How do you think Islam spread? Have you read the book? Like, like I don't know. It just there's no like logical consistency. It's just
Yeah, I know.
Catholicism seems to be the worst for some reason.
Yeah, and, not to say there hasn't been corruption in our church, but that's why it's important to understand that it is still run by humans, and I had a realization recently that if this church really is true, it would make sense that it would be attacked by the enemy more than any other organization. It would make sense that they want to go for the people at the heads of churches and up at the very top because that instills doubt
Mm,
in the followers. And it made complete sense to me, so that's another battle I had to go through after hearing and learning some information I found recently that like it's not going to be free of error just because we are
yeah,
human. So,
yeah.
I had to learn like, okay, I just have to trust my parish, my priest, and trust that my congregation is just its own thing. And if it feels right to me at whatever time I choose to be there, then I need to go with that. And that's really just where intuition and discernment come in. But
Mm,
same like my father, my stepmom, a couple of my siblings and my step siblings, they're all pretty liberal and non-religious at all, drinkers, weed smokers, all that stuff. And now just because of the whole anti-Mormon, religious trauma, attitudes that they have just towards Christianity in general, I definitely
mm-hmm,
feel like I was more accepted as a Muslim than I was as a Catholic now. I can just feel that energy of like, oh, here this girl goes again. It's just you know, another crazy
yeah.
thing she's doing. It'll probably be temporary. But I know Russell Brand's been dealing with that too. Like, he was living very, very secular, crazy ways, and then he was more like new age for a while, which I was at the same time. And then he kind of was going through his Christian conversion a couple months before I decided to. So it's been interesting to be on a similar
Mm-hmm.
path as him. And people were saying the same thing, like, oh, here this guy goes, just like another temporary fad that he's joining, and he's probably gonna switch it
Which
up in
is
another couple years.
interesting because even if it was like just a phase, so what? Like, what's the big deal with people trying to find their spirituality, especially when it comes to Christianity? Like, no one cared when Russell Brand was doing New Age stuff. No one cares when we're doing New Age stuff, right? It's like, oh, even if
Yeah.
it's just a phase, and then we leave that and we go atheist again, or maybe I want to try some like Hinduism, see what that's about. No one's gonna care. But
No.
even if it is just a phase, why is it so bad? Like when you think of Christianity, the let's say God does not exist for some reason, right? Hypothetically, what is the core of Christianity? Like the life of Jesus, even if
Mhm.
it's just a story. It's a pretty good story. The story is basically him saying like forgive people and die for others and love each other the way you want to be loved. Why is this philosophy so like dangerous to people? I
And
don't
that's
understand
it's a
that.
misunderstanding because, again, when I left the Mormon church, I knew nothing about it. I just knew I didn't really like those people, and I didn't wanna be anything like them,
Mhm.
and I didn't know a single Catholic. I didn't even know, just to put it into perspective, I didn't know who the Pope was or why he was important. I didn't know there was a difference between Catholics and Christians. I knew nothing about what they teach, about what they believe. I I lived with my dad right before COVID and during COVID, and that Handmaid's Tale show was really big during that time, which the have you watched it or do you know anything about it?
I know what you're talking about. I haven't watched much at all, but I know what you're
So
talking
the
about.
concept is essentially like women aren't able to reproduce any longer, or a very, very, very small percentage of them are. They start kidnapping the fertile women and forcing them into this kind of religious cult so that they can help the elites reproduce. And it's just a crazy dystopian, scary, show. And
Mhm.
I am not kidding. My father said, "This is what the Christians are trying to do in this country. Christianity is trying to take over." And it was when Trump was president the first time, and the amount of like, again, no factual evidence, no understanding really of what real Christianity is about. All he was referencing
Mhm.
was just his Mormon cult experience. So anything that had to do with Christianity was immediately evil and bad. And
Yeah.
I had no factual references either, but it was just this overall attitude like, "Oh, we don't like Mormonism, we don't like Christians even. They're evil, they're trying to control everyone and make everybody do things they don't wanna do." Like, it was this it was very just how liberals are nowadays. They have no
Mhm.
actual reference as to why they believe what they believe. It's just, "Oh, well, this person does," and this is just kind of the attitude I hear online, so I'm basing all of my beliefs onto that. And so,
Yeah.
um, living with people that were like that. And then I moved out and moved with my mom, who was very conservative and was kind of waking up, and she actually helped me wake up. But all of my friends were very like big drinkers, weed smokers. So I got back into doing all of that stuff between 2020 and 2022, 23 when I became Muslim. And
Mhm.
so just, you view that as like, oh, hookup culture is okay, drinking is okay, smoking weed is okay, my life is so great. And you don't even realize when you're in it how depressed everyone is and
Yeah.
how miserable everyone is because you convince yourself because you're high and drunk all the time that life is great. You're spending all your money, all your weekends going out. Like, don't get me wrong, it was fun. But like the way
Mhm.
that I felt, I was showing up to work feeling like crap. I wasn't doing my best. I wasn't eating well. And I was just spiritually dead. And so now I cannot feel the difference. My body's clean. I'm living for someone else besides myself. And I think that's what scares non-Christians about Christianity is they just view it as control. Like, they just wanna control people and just tell you, like, "You're bad, and you shouldn't do these things because we say so," and it's not at all what that's about. It's just about, like, learning about God is learning that, Jesus died for our sins, and that is like, it's even still hard for me to wrap my brain around sometimes, which is why these movies and shows are a really good way for people to feel it, like The Chosen and The
Mhm.
Passion, which I still haven't seen The Passion. I've been putting it off because
You definitely got to.
I know it's gonna be very emotionally heavy for me because The Chosen
Mhm.
even has been. But, for me, like, in The Chosen, seeing Jesus personified in that way completely made it 10,000 times easier for me to visualize and experience what he's about, and I think they did a really good job of showing more of the nuance in the Bible because in the Bible, when I was reading it, it's pretty crazy. It's just like, this
Mhm.
happened, this happened, this happened, and it's just this very basic, like, from one sentence to the next, it'll be like 100 years, and your brain
Yeah.
doesn't realize, like, how much actually goes on between those paragraphs, so having a show really paint it just helped me solidify my decision, and then going to mass, actually going and seeing what it was like, and not I had no, like, preconceived notions about it 'cause I didn't know what mass was. Even the first time
Mhm.
I went alone, and I took the Eucharist on accident because I didn't know that you aren't supposed
Yeah.
to, everybody else was just doing it, so I went up and did it, and then, I went home And my husband was like, "Oh, you weren't supposed to do that." And I was like, but in OCIA, they're like, "It's okay. If you don't know, God's not gonna be upset, you know, but if you do
Mhm.
know and you choose to do it anyway, that's where it gets to be not good." But again, that's where you learn entitlement and why, like, my diocese makes you do OCIA for 2 years before you can get baptized, where my friends
Mhm.
in Salt Lake, it's only 6 months for her. She just joined last month in October, and she's already gonna be
Mine was
baptized
4
this Easter.
months.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
they really wanna make sure here because what they've noticed in New York, because it's a big transitional area, but they noticed people would join, and they wouldn't get catechized very well, and then they would stop going, you know?
Mhm.
So I appreciate it in that sense, where I have had to put in a lot more time and effort to stick to it, and really see it through. I have 5 more months, I think, until Easter, but,
Nice.
I love my group. I've been very blessed and, you know, as you've probably seen, like, I have a personal page and a Catholic page, and I haven't gotten on my Catholic page recently, which I need to, but my personal page, my algorithm just knows how to hook me, and it posts very aggravating political stuff that makes me angry, a lot of
Mhm.
Christian hating, Catholic hating stuff, Protestants versus Catholics fighting, personal friends of mine that are very liberal, posting the craziest, dumbest stuff I've ever seen, and it's just all making me angry, you know? And,
Yeah.
it's easy to get sucked into that, but then it will get to a point where I'm like, "Ugh, I don't wanna go to OCIA, I'm just so, like, drained and stressed," but I make myself go, and I know that at a certain point, it is kind of the enemy that's like, uh,
He
"We're gonna."
doesn't want you to go,
He doesn't
so
want me
yeah,
to go,
exactly.
and my friend, the one that was dealing with the paranormal stuff, he said the same thing, like, the closer he was getting to his baptism, the crazier stuff was happening, you know, and I wouldn't say
Mhm.
I have, like, a demon attached to me or anything, I don't have anything that extreme, but I have been feeling like, "Oh, I'll get sick," or there'll be something that's happening in my day that I'm like, "I don't wanna go to OCIA tonight." But I
Mhm.
go, I force myself to go, and it is so peaceful there. I love the people that are there, and whenever I go, it brings me back, it brings me closer to the church again, you know, and despite all of the things that I hear about the corruption, this and that, I still it still helps me want to have my own personal relationship with the church, and I don't mean that in the sense of, like, picking and choosing what I'm gonna practice and believe in, but it's more of, like,
Mhm.
knowing what to tune out and knowing just how to follow my intuition, and, I feel very at peace there. I love my parish, it's beautiful. I am actually in the choir, which is so much fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, so again, I have choir and church and OCIA, so I spend quite a bit of time at my parish. But again, choir, it's less for me. Like some weeks I don't want to go to choir because I get there an hour and a half before mass, and now we're practicing for Christmas, and we're spending extra time after mass. So it's like 3 hours that I'm there, you know. But I view
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
as again doing something not for myself, and that is what I love this church has taught me is the new age stuff and even Islam, I feel like it's very self-serving. I especially when I started to learn in Islam where they have I don't remember what they're called, but all the little prayers where you say a prayer a certain number of times and you get a certain number of, like, points
Oh,
essentially.
Zik? Like, the way you just
Yes,
say keep
yeah,
saying it
yeah,
over?
yeah,
Yeah.
and I just was like, "That's a little crazy." I know we
It's
have
like
it.
goody points,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, yeah, it was, like, points, and I was like, "That seems a little silly to me." Um But just the selflessness and the service, and, you know, I met the same kind of people in the Catholic Church, very giving, very accepting, very loving, very kind, and, you know, OCIA, I'm learning a lot of things I feel like a lot of cradle Catholics don't learn. I don't
Mhm.
You probably experience the same thing where, like, I'll
Yeah.
come home and tell my husband, "Do you know about this prayer, or do you know about this thing that I learned today?" And he's like, "Nope." You know? So,
Yeah, they don't know anything sometimes, like, they
yeah.
don't know why they're Catholics. So yeah.
I know. Yeah, so and he'll even forget, like, some of the things that we say during mass, he doesn't remember, so I'm kind of helping strengthen his faith as well, so it's been a
Mhm.
really good beneficial thing for both of us, but
Awesome.
despite, that it's probably challenging for most of us, especially in this day and age, it feels the most rewarding because it is really helping me see how much I was living for myself, and I'm still kind of shedding those layers where it's like,
Mhm.
I've only been about me and what I wanna do, and now it's, what would Jesus want from me, and what can I do to serve the Lord or serve somebody else today?
Yeah.
Um, and it's helping me look at more ways that I need to be forgiving and how holding on to resentment, like, even with my father, he and I weren't speaking for 8 months
Mhm.
because I was it's similar to your family, not to that extreme, but where I was posting a lot of conservative things, and I got blocked by my stepsister and my dad because they didn't like what I was posting, although me knowing that they are bleeding heart liberals and everything they post, I never once had the thought of blocking my own family, so I
Yeah.
wasn't being treated with that same kind of respect,
Mhm.
and understanding and acceptance. So I got really hurt and upset by that and blocked him. And then I got a call a few months ago from my stepmom that he has brain cancer, you know, and it's been a really interesting journey since then. I've never once viewed it as, oh, God's punishing me or like, oh, God's taking my dad away. It's never once been that. I've actually viewed it as me. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
No, it's all good.
Um, I've actually viewed it as something that it's just like with Charlie Kirk, he took a bad thing but used it to create a lot of good from it. And what this has done,
Mhm.
although I hate that he's suffering, I don't even pray for his miraculous healing. I've been praying for more comfort and peace of mind and for him to accept Jesus in his final days. Um,
Yeah.
but it's also been a way for me to forgive him more easily and let go of what was between us because I was holding on to that. I'm a grudge holder. And this has really
Mhm.
helped me see, like, we don't know how much time we have. And so that forgiveness, although it's hard sometimes and it's painful, it's really important. And so that's really what I love about learning and going on this Catholic journey. I never learned any of that in Islam. It was all just about
Mhm.
like, oh, if you don't do wudu right, or if you fart after you do wudu, you have to do it again because you can't pray. And it's just like it's so
Mhm.
crazy, and that's more what I was worried about is just like the technical aspects and all of the little tiny things you have to do in Islam versus what's the overarching message. But
Yeah.
then I started learning the overarching message and I was like, I don't like this as the violence and the, oppression. And when you really start
Yeah.
learning about that, again, that's where I think the ignorance of the Western white woman is really what it's about. And I do think this
Yeah.
whole Free Palestine stuff, I was telling my husband about this. The Free Palestine movement, I feel like was a psyop. It was terrible and it was obviously happened. But I do think it was
Mhm.
purposeful because if you look, everyone in the West like was so I don't wanna say brainwashed because it was terrible, but just the performative Free Palestine, like, a lot of people I feel like didn't even really know what was going on, just they see their classmates or other people with the Free Palestine stuff, and now they're
Well, they
all
asked
these
people on the streets and didn't even know how to answer it. Like, they didn't even know where
I
it was
don't
on a
even know what
map.
we're doing. We're just out here. And they post these things on their bio without knowing what it's about. And they knew people were going to do that. And now look what's happening. Now all these Muslims are trying to come hold positions of office and positions of power.
Mhm.
And they're wanting to come over here. And so now people are like, oh, because of the Palestine thing, I love these people and I feel bad for them. So they should just be able to come here and they're great, because they feel bad for them. But they don't understand what their religion is about. And it's really interesting because
Mhm.
the boy I dated that was Muslim, he doesn't agree with a lot of the violence and things like that. But my question is, how can you cherry pick? How can you be a Muslim? Like, sure, you may disagree with that stuff, but how can you disagree with Muhammad and Allah? How can you
I don't
decide?
understand it either. That's why I left. I don't understand,
It's
like,
a cognitive
truth is truth.
dissonance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it made no sense to me. I'm like, okay, but you have to believe these things because it's what you're taught.
Mhm.
So are you now condemned to hell? But nothing in Catholicism is anything that I disagree with. It has all helped me to lead a better life for myself and for other people and taught
And
me how to be more
I think
selfless.
a good distinction too, like, I have this argument all the time with my mom where she's like, "Yeah, well, Catholics did terrible things." And I'm like, "You're saying the word Catholics. I'm saying, like, the Islam, like,
Mhm.
the ideology. I'm not saying Muslims. I'm saying the actual belief system.
Mhm.
Like, is there any dogmas in Catholicism that teach that if you leave the religion, you should be killed, or that we should kill homosexuals, or we should, like,
No, it makes
that
no
women are
sense.
second-class citizens? No, it doesn't exist in the dogmas. Now, have
Mhm.
Catholics done stupid things? Yeah, probably. But that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about people. We're talking
Mhm.
about the actual belief systems, and I don't think people in the Western world are able to differentiate between belief systems and people. They're not
Yeah.
like, for some reason they can't do it, and I which baffles me because throughout, like, the last 100 years, there've been terrible belief systems from different countries, but we don't look at Germany today and think it's what they used to believe in the 40s. And we don't look at
Right.
Russia and
Like
be like,
every
"Oh,
single
they're."
German is a Nazi now, you
Yeah, no
know?
one no one says that. Like,
No.
you know what I mean? But for
But
some
people
reason, when it comes to Islam and, like, like, religions and, like, those type of things in modern time, there's, like, a cognitive dissonance where they're
Mhm.
not able to differentiate between the people and the actual concepts.
Yeah, I agree, and it's also because they don't know anything about it, and we can post all day about Taqiyya and about the Quran, and people do the same
Mhm.
thing with the Talmud, but this PSYOP has been happening since before World War II, about when the Bolsheviks and all of that stuff was happening in the early 1900s, and, it's been a purposeful agenda this whole time where they created the words like racist and anti-Semitic and Islamophobic, and they created these things to put people in fear from criticizing. And it's still happening nowadays, and
Mhm.
just more people are breaking free. And I feel like this is where the good and bad sides of social media come in. I do think social media is genuinely like terrible, but there is a lot of good use for it.
Yeah.
And one of those things is like the people that are spreading information, trying to help other people wake up. Like I actually learn so much on Instagram. A lot of it is terrifying because it's the
Mhm.
truth. The truth is very terrifying, but at the same time, I feel like my soul has always been a truth seeker. And that's why, you know, this is a really interesting thing to say as a Catholic, but my very first experience using psychedelics, which was mushrooms, I my first experience I had with those was actually mind-bogglingly positive. Like, I feel like that's when I opened up my brain, and it technically, scientifically does create more neural pathways in your brain. Like, that's just science.
Mhm.
So I do feel like that's when I've opened my brain up to be able to be more open-minded and to start questioning things around me. And I did have some epiphanies during that experience where I was looking at society as a whole. Like I was sitting in my friend's backyard with him and I was like, you know what's crazy is we're just sitting back here right now, laughing, listening to music, having a great time, having a great conversation. And your neighbors could just call the cops on us right now and just ruin our lives. And I was like, that is very crazy to me that this is treated as just as much of a crime as like going and robbing someone or shooting someone.
Mhm.
So that's where I started to question society. So even though I view those things as like part of my past and I no longer want a part of them, I feel like that's what God's plan was for me, that that's the route that I needed to take to be able to get here. And I view Islam the same way and all the New Age stuff. I would not have arrived here without any of that. Islam was a
Yeah.
stepping stone and it showed me like worship and community, and things like that and culture, which was great. I learned about the Middle East and the culture to help me
Mhm.
understand what is going on in the world because you're so far removed from it unless you purposefully dive into it because we didn't learn about Islam in school. I didn't learn
Mhm.
about Judaism in school. I learned about very basic, like, Protestant Reformation, like, basic European history, Stalin, dictators, all of that stuff. I didn't learn about the
Yeah.
Bolsheviks. I didn't learn about anything that I feel like is important, and now the more I've learned recently is that a lot of that stuff has been tailored, and a lot of information has been purposely left out to create these certain narratives. So coupling my just desire for learning and questioning everything with now my faith journey, it actually all just makes sense. Like everything is spiritual warfare. And
Mhm.
having this Catholicism and this belief in Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit has helped give me so much peace. I still get a little bit scared, especially with this whole mayoral election here. It's been this back and forth of like, "Oh, I'm so frustrated, I'm so angry, I feel like I'm at the mercy of imbeciles all the time." But then it's
Yeah.
also that same thing of like, just trust God, just trust that everything will be okay and that God has a plan. But then I go with the other side of things and see that millions of people have been martyrs for our beliefs, and
Mhm.
that scares me as well. Like, not that I wouldn't, it's hard to put myself in that situation, but
It's
I'm
still a
scared of
scary thought. Yeah,
I'm scared of
exactly.
pain, I'm really scared of pain. And so, and suffering, and I have suffered in my own ways, but not at that level. But these people so
Mhm.
bravely do it, and to think that that may have to be something I might have to endure depending on how life goes, I don't know. But that is a very, very big challenge of faith, and that's why I love learning about St. Peter, you know, where he says, "You're gonna deny me 3 times," and he's like, "Absolutely not, I would never do that."
2
And
hours
then
later,
I
yeah.
know, because it's easy to try to imagine it without being put in that situation,
Mhm.
but then to actually be in it is totally different. So, that's a really big
Yeah,
that's a really great, analogy and anecdote for just having some perspective on what we may have to get tested with. Um,
for sure.
because I feel like especially with how comfortable we are in this day and age with all the technology and all the comforts and conveniences that we have, um, those things are even more scary, trying to survive. Like these people back then were surviving with much less, and it really was survival. Like they knew how to do a lot with their bare hands and with very little. Whereas,
Mhm.
the electricity that we all rely on now, I think about if the grid gets shut down, like the people that are prepared for that are going to last. And so that's kind of
Yes.
been where my focus is and this is where church has really helped me is learning that I want to help my family. I want to help my friends. I would love to be in a position where I can help serve people. If it comes to that, I would love to be the house where I'm like, okay, all my friends, come here. We've got a whole homestead with a farm and with everything that we need. You all come here. And that's where I feel like God has really been leading me. I want to be a
Mhm.
mother. I want to continue putting children into this world that are going to spread the good word and spread Jesus and love and conservative values, which I feel like, in the right sense, align with Catholicism, and Christianity very well. So I just feel like God's
Yeah.
slowly been leading me down that path where I've been really helpless most of my life. I've been really bad with my money. I've been really irresponsible. I was really irresponsible with physical intimacy in my 20s, and now looking with hindsight, I realize the sacredness that that is taught and that um should be revered with, marriage and
Mhm.
relationships, having been scarred so many times and going through just all of the hookup culture and things that I went through in my 20s, it did feel like it stole parts of my soul. So
Yeah.
coming to this has just really awakened me to so much, like how much more rich life can be and how just living that life of sin really is not rewarding. And
Mm.
even the new age stuff, it seems harmless, but just it's all about yourself. It's all about whatever you want and your boundaries and whatever makes you feel good. There's no service that goes along with
It's all
that.
selfish, not selfless, yeah.
Exactly, and that's where I started learning about Jesus and what Catholics do and how they worship, and I was like, "Wow, this is not at all the idea that I had of it."
Mhm.
Um, so anyway,
Yeah.
that's a long-winded story about
No,
my
it's
kinda
amazing.
journey.
I would I would just say, first of all, thank you for sharing, because it could be 100 people, it could be 1,000 people that see this, but regardless, that's amazing. And I guess my last question before we wrap up is, do you have any words for someone who's, like, going through something similar? Like, maybe, like, 2 years before where they're going through, like, this spiritual desolation and don't know where to go? Like, how would you tell someone, "Hey, maybe check out Jesus?"
Yeah, so, I would say just go to mass, just go and experience it for yourself. Go find the most beautiful church or the closest church that you can find. And what I will say is that, like, my friend who's been joining, she's had me to ask tons of questions too, because there's really a small community of Catholics in Salt Lake in particular. And she's reached out to me for so much. And a lot of it she could Google, but
Mhm.
go there and talk to someone. Like, talk to the rectory, talk to the priest if you can. I was very intimidated by priests. Like, I thought I wasn't allowed to talk to them for the first like 6 months, or even I had my first conversation with my priest like a month ago. So that was over a year into my journey. But
Wow.
just, or go online, like find a Catholic online or even an Orthodox person and just follow as many as you can. And you will find a community of people that is so excited. That's genuinely gonna be the attitude. Like, no matter how you choose to dress when you go to mass, hopefully it's more modestly, but don't question it so much that it prevents you from going. Like, the attitude that people are going to have with you just asking questions or showing up is going to be elation. People are going to be
Mhm.
elated that you are wanting to be a part of this, and you will feel that. So just don't be afraid. Reach out to anyone you know. They'll be happy. Like, I really have not met a single Catholic that would, even younger ones than me, that would not be so excited to help. You know, I've met so many that have taken so much time to answer questions for me, and they're always so sweet and kind, and they're always like, "How can I pray for you? How can I help you? Let me know if you have any questions or if you need anything." The support that you will get will blow your mind. So just don't be
Yeah.
afraid to find someone around you, talk to your priest, just they want you there and you will be welcomed with open arms. Get a Bible, read it. There's so much information on YouTube as well. Like, you can pretty much find anything. If you want to know how mass works before you go, there's YouTube videos on exactly what's going on.
Mhm.
If you're lost on how to pray, like, there's videos on that too. That even help me, because I get stuck like, oh, if I'm not praying with this certain vocabulary and this certain tone and words, I'm not doing it right, and um through different forms of content like Father Mike Schmitz and, different prayers on Hallow and watching you and just other Instagrammers I followed, like, they've really shown me, like Bishop Barron, they have so much information that help you on your journey and help you realize it's much less constricting than it is free, and that Jesus just
Yeah.
wants you there. So, you know, um, I really think there's probably far and few between of parishes that wouldn't be super excited that you're inquiring. Um, so yeah, that's my advice.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Maddie, and I appreciate it. And yeah, God bless. And
Thank you.
everyone who's watching, just like, subscribe, do the whole 9 yards. I'll put your Instagram stuff in the description. So if they want to follow you, they can do that.
Awesome.
And
Yeah, I need to post on there
awesome.
more. Do you wanna say a quick,
I get yeah.
Our Father together?
Yeah, you want to lead it?
Yeah, let's do it, okay. In the name of the
Awesome.
Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven,
You art in
hallowed be
heaven,
thy name.
hallowed be thy
Thy
name.
kingdom come, thy
Thy
will be done, on
be
earth as it
done
is in
on earth
heaven.
as it is in
Give us
heaven.
this day our daily
Give us this
bread,
day our
and
daily
forgive us our
bread, and forgive us
trespasses
our
as we forgive
trespasses,
those who trespass
those who
against us.
trespass against
And lead
us,
us not into
and lead us not into
temptation, but deliver us
temptation,
from
but
evil.
deliver us from
Amen.
evil.
In the name of the
Amen.
Father, and
In
of
the
the Son,
Father,
and of the
Son,
Holy Spirit.
Holy
Amen.
Spirit. Awesome. Well, again,
God
thank you so
bless.
much, and good night, guys. God
Thank
bless.
you.